Welcome to a very special occasion in our series of conversations with CEOs, executives, and HR leaders. Lola Jordan, our guest today, is the president of Companion Data Services, a Celerian Group company. Lola brings more than 30 years of healthcare and information technology experience to bear on the solutions that CDS provides. Lola brings a rare combination of having led large fiscal agent and Medicare carrier operations, and a technology background that includes data center, infrastructure, print, and knowledge of application development teams. As a pioneer in health IT, Lola brings insight and vision to the connectivity between healthcare information and technology through specialized business knowledge in hosting services, managed services, cloud business models, government programs, security, and virtualization. Lola adds a perspective that few can, how to work with and build relations with organizations such as Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services and the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association. Lola's passion outside of work is volunteering and supporting the United Way of the Midlands, especially in the area of at-risk youth. Lola, welcome to our program.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Would you like to start by telling us a little bit about your personal journey in your career?
Well, I love to tell people about my personal journey because it's really about my parents. My parents were both blue-collar workers. They worked very hard to raise 4 kids and support us. The one thing they would always tell us, though, is when you grow up, you're going to college. So when we grow old, you're going to support us. And that stuck with my oldest sister, and it stuck with me. And my oldest sister was the first to graduate either side of the family from college, and I was the second. And so when I got in college, I had intended to be a teacher, and I looked at salaries and I said, well, I can't support my parents in at their old age with the teacher salary. And so I flipped my major to computer science. It looked like it was the new era. I had taken one course in high school and I said, oh, that looks like it might be a good fit for what my parents want. And that's really how I ended up in the field of computer science, was really trying to fulfill that dream that my parents had set up for me. So I graduated with that degree, started with EDS, which is Electronic Data Systems. It's a Ross Perot company. Spent over 20 years there when Companion Data Services found me in this arena. And I've come over to this side. My journey's been, I could go on, but my journey has been both in technology, end to end, as you described, but also in the business aspect of it, having run the actual claims, data processing, customer service, quality, all of those functions that come with it. It crosses Medicaid, Medicare, and commercial payers. So I've had a good exposure and great leaders that have really allowed me to be where I'm at in my journey today.
That's wonderful. And looking back, how things have changed since you joined the organization?
Well, technology has advanced immensely, and I like this analogy. Air travel today is to the Wright brothers' travel of yesterday. Technology today is those deck cards as programmers that they would use. A lot of people may not remember them, but deck cards of yesterday as they are computers today. But even computers today, when I was in school and we had Apple coming out with their Macs, I mean, you still had pretty big machines. Mainframes filled big rooms. And today, our computer is on a phone, right? I mean, there is more power in that phone than what I had, I like thousands fold than what I had on my Mac that I got in high school. What hasn't changed, though, which is just as important, is the people behind the technology. Mm-hmm. We hear many times people say, oh, my grandchildren, they can use technology better than I can, and they can work their way around a phone. And that's all true. But my response to him is, that's true. And I can use an electric switch. I can go over and I can flip the switch and turn on my electricity. That does not mean I know how that electrical engineer gets that from the pole outside my building all the way into my building. And that's what we're really missing today is those technologists, those children, those college students that in STEM that want to know how it happens.
Yeah.
And that's such a big thing. And it takes the people behind everything we do to make sure that our technology world will continue. Without that, delivery is not going to happen. No more games on your little phone as you sit in airports.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Looking forward, what are some of the important things that you would like to accomplish at CDS?
Well, CDS has the customer experience as our strategic focus. To accomplish this, we need great people that are passionate about being servant leaders. They need to want to live to make our customers happy. For our CDS leaders, we need to ensure that they're creating the best environment that our people can be matched to the business needs as well. It's a balance between both the demands of our customers, living in the gray area, delivering what they want, and we're not doing it just out of the box. We're not an out of the box company. Yeah. We create the solutions that they want, not what we believe as technologists they have to have. Everything fits differently for our customers.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the applications that you support are so much tied into legislations, laws, and so many other factors that you have to consider in supporting those clients. Yeah.
Great example. I mean, healthcare is one of the most regulated industries out there, although people may not think it is. It really is very regulated, and legislation is changes continually. With the most recent being what they call interoperability, where the patient and the doctor can get to the records no matter where they are. Which is very important for us as Americans to start understanding our health better than just leaving it in the hands of our health providers.
Exactly. No, I appreciate you sharing that. On a different notes, if you don't mind, how do you characterize your leadership style, and what kind of impact do you see it has had on the stakeholders that you work with?
I appreciate that question. As my goal is to be a servant leader and support the team where they're needed. My preference is macro management and looking to how to drive the company to success and allow the people to do their jobs. The word empowered is used a lot, but I really do want them to know that they can execute on their jobs and come to me to support them in any way that they need supported. It's very important for growth. I can't have a succession plan if the people aren't allowed to do their job. The other part of my style is directness, as colleagues could tell you. I'm a direct communicator. And so, I have to manage that too, because, there are some people that are more soft and you can't be direct, and there's others that you're not direct enough. So between that servant leadership and that directness, I really strive to support my team.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. What would you say are some of the values that are the guiding lights for you and the organization?
We just went through this exercise last year as a leadership team to ensure that we were staying focused on the values, and they pretty much have stayed the same. As mentioned, the customer experience is our strategic focus. We meet the customer where they are, meaning we work with them to bring an optimal solution to meet their business goals. We avoid technology deployment for the sake of technology. How can we make technology work for them, not against them? We live in the gray area. What that means is, as you mentioned, regulations and technologies are constantly evolving, and flexibility is key. So ambiguity is not an obstacle for us. If you bring us something, we're going to help you figure it out. We don't do it out of the box. We're creative in our approach. Unique technology challenges require creative approaches. And we value our employees and provide them benefits and environments that we hope they can thrive in. That includes supporting our community through outreach such as the United Way of the Midlands or the United Way of whatever local destination they are. We're proud to be part of the largest health insurance company in the state of South Carolina, in that we are one of the primary donors to the United Way of the Midlands as employees. You'll see commercials on TV talk about, we've donated $2 million. Our employees year over year have donated personally over $2 million just to the United Way of the Midlands in South Carolina. I mean, that's not the whole state. That's just one portion of it. And we're proud. And it doesn't end there. We associate with food banks, the American Heart Association, things along that line. So when we look at the employee, we look at them holistically and see where we can fit them in, not just in the benefits that we provide in the environment, but how do we impact our community?
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. If you don't mind, I want to kind of change gear here. And when it comes to hiring and reviewing candidates' resume, besides their expertise, what makes you decide to interview someone or not to interview a candidate?
So people seeking a high-paced environment that loves to deliver excellence is a big plus. And you can really see that a lot of times through their resumes. While structure is mandatory in our environment due to our regulatory environment, we have dozens of audits. We have certifications in ISO 27000, ISO 9000, CMMI level 9. People watching it are like, oh, she's got too many acronyms. But we really need to pay attention to those details, balanced with a creative mind to come up with good solutions to our customers. So when I'm looking at an application, I'm looking for someone that's well-rounded and that they didn't just go to school. They didn't just become a 4.0 student without something else besides an internship. And those are important, but to me, that's part of the curriculum versus, and I'm biased here. When I went to school, I worked full-time. I had a co-op position in my last year of college. And I was involved in 2 fraternal organizations, not sororities, outside of school, including being a board member on one. Not saying that to puff me up or anything like that. I'm saying it makes a difference when you're well-rounded and you don't just focus on one thing. It shows that you can be creative and you can multitask and you can move around into different environments.
Exactly. And when you interview someone, again, what are some of the important things that you look for in a candidate, again, besides, their expertise and certifications, in that the live dynamic of interview, what are some of the things that you would particularly look for?
Yeah, that's a great question too. It's really dependent upon the position. First and foremost, I really look at the resume. I want to know, are they paying attention to details? Because that'll tell me how they're going to serve their customer, how they're going to take care of the administrative stuff that we need to have. Are they paying for that or paying attention to that detail? Diversity is in thought and experience. It's very important to have that diversity and also to see how they can express the inclusion of that diversity in their prior experience, right? We've moved from just simply talking about diversity to how do you make it an inclusive environment? How do you make sure that if you're bringing on a female into an environment that she feels as part of that team? And, an example is golf. There are women that golf. So I'm using kind of a cliche, but golfing. And if they go after work and all the men go out golfing and this woman doesn't golf, then it doesn't feel inclusive. So making sure that there's activities that are inclusive that they want to do as well, right? And that goes with whether it's ethnicity, cultural background, whatever that is, or if there's a flower on the wall in a meeting and they're the quiet one in the group, how do you bring their thought out? How do you bring out their inclusivity? So asking questions that will really get to that point of it. And it really doesn't matter if it's a leader you're seeking or a frontline individual performer. We all need to figure out as a team how to bring out the best in each other. So those questions are important there. Already talked to you about really wanting someone that's well-rounded and seeking those questions to understand that, especially as students come out of college. A lot of them don't think about the true experience that they have. Yeah. And a simple example is a babysitter, right? People think, oh, babysitting, that's an easy job. No, somebody is leaving their children in your hands. Yeah, you have a big responsibility. You're leading those children. What did you do when you had those children? Did you read to them? Okay, now you're a teacher, right? Did you go out and play with them? Now you're a coach. You know, it's really looking at how can you bring those questions out to your interns and your people coming out of college as well. So I really, depending upon where they are in the life cycle of their career, it can be very different in how I interview for the position.
Yeah, that's great. That was very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. What kind of a difference will it make if the candidate is someone that other members of your team can vouch for, or they have known and referred? How important that is, or what kind of a difference would it make?
If anyone says that it doesn't make a difference, I think they might be kidding themselves, right? Because we're comfortable with the known more than we are with the unknown. And as part of a large healthcare insurer in South Carolina, we're proud of the lineage of our friends, our family, our referrals that work here. There's no better compliment than someone bringing you in as a referral. If the referral comes in from a strong employee, we take that into serious consideration. And since we have a diverse workforce, it allows us to attract more diversity as well. And the way I like to think about it is if I'm going to refer somebody, they're probably going to have to work twice as hard just not to make me look bad. And that's the way I think anyone referring somebody is, right? Because it's a reflection of you. Who's your friends? Who's your family? Who's your former colleagues? So I think it's important. Yeah. That being said, if we don't have enough diversity, we still need recruiting practices that allows us to bring that diversity in. So our recruiting practices are still tapping into partnerships with the historically Black colleges, partnerships with like the University of South Carolina for internships, so we can tap into that diversity, going to work fairs, closely working with veterans organizations. So it's not the only way to get in, but it's certainly one of the ways that we recruit.
That was really insightful. Thank you so much for sharing that. A totally different question. A lot of candidates, are concerned that by answering questions about the salary, because a lot of applications nowadays ask, what's your salary expectation? And they're concerned that by answering that question too early, they may be leaving money on the table or disqualifying themselves for a position. What is the perspective from the employer's side? And what would you advise candidates on how to approach those questions?
If you are asked, then be candid and honest about it. And I love this one story. I have a couple of stories, but I love this one story when I was running a customer service center 10, 12 years ago and had a new manager that I brought in, actually came over from Turkey, and we're interviewing customer service. And we had candidates that came in and we'd ask that question, what do you want? And some would say, $10, some would say $12, some would say $6. I mean, literally, it's all over the place. And our going rate hourly at that time was $10.25. So one candidate came in and said she wanted $9. And so new manager, and I said, okay, what are you going to offer her? And he says, well, she wants $9. So we're going to offer her $9. And I said, is that wise? And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, really, we're offering everybody else $10.25. If her experience is such, we should be providing that. Yeah. And he's like, wow, we do that? And I said, yeah, we do that, but it gives you a starting point, right? That $9 told us that she'd be happy at $9, but when we offer $10.25, you've already built a loyalty there, right? Oh my God, yeah. Now the flip side can happen where you have someone coming in that says, I want 14 or I want 13. And I don't believe I make those decisions for individuals, but we at least know where they're starting at. And it's not fair to deny them the opportunity to say no. If they're the best candidate, then at least we know where they've started. Yeah. Females, I want to go to females. It's really, really important for females to state what they want. And this is the second story, is that I had a mentor when I was applying for a job. I really didn't know. I'd been in EDS so long, I really didn't know, what the market was. And he told me, here's what you should start with. And I looked at him and I thought, you're a little crazy. I can't start that high. And he's like, no, that's the problem with women in general, not all. I've learned now is that they undervalue where they are. And it's better to start high and negotiate down. And I said, okay, great. So I did what he wanted, and lo and behold, I get hired at that amount. And I'm talking to my husband, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And later I became good friends with the recruiter who hired me and said, well, you were actually hired at a higher amount than we actually targeted. And I share that story because men are more comfortable with targeting high. Women need to get more comfortable with targeting high. If I had not had an advocate or a mentor that taught that most important lesson to me, I wouldn't have been where I'm at, in making sure that I'm getting what I'd like to have. So I really think it's important for the employer to know it. I know people aren't comfortable though with stating what it is. I was a prime example of it.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned about, how women approach this as opposed to men, because, we witness the same thing among our, coaching clients. And for some reason, as you said, women are so cautious about going with numbers that are typically much lower than men, although in many cases they are far more qualified. So
right. The other thing that women do, and this is something to really encourage them about, and I learned this from Gartner, who is one of our partners that we partners up with, is that women tend to literally take the requirements, not mandatory, but preference and all of that literally. So if they miss one little aspect, I'm not qualified. So not applied. So kind of goes back to my babysitting example, right? And men are like, oh, they only want that, but I'm great, so they're going to want me anyway. And so when I'm mentoring women or they ask my advice, I say, unless it's mandatory, there's some things you can't get around. A college degree, right? You can't get around that. With their algorithms today, it just bounces the resume out. But other things, it's not literal. We've got to quit taking things literally and see how you can work it in to say, yeah, I may not have this part of the aspect that you want, but you never thought about this part that is just as important or more important, maybe they didn't use the word collaboration. So you bring it into your resume, very collaborative. And let me give you an example of how I'm collaborative. Yeah. So that those are two things that women and there are men that are reserved in how they approach it. So both could learn that And again, I've been taught that through good mentors or companies.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. How would you recommend your newer employees to go about, their work, not only to help, the company as best as they can, but also be conscious about their own career advancements?
Right. I encourage them, and I speak to classes at the University of South Carolina as they're going into their years for internships. I encourage them to learn as much as they can when they start. I mean, your schooling really never ends. I think college, unless you're in a really technical field, medical, chemistry, things that you don't want someone operating on you that doesn't know your body parts. The rest is teaching you how to learn in the environment, right? Your learning never stops. So be a self-starter. Don't expect anyone to own your career. So a lot of old and new, young and old, will come in and they think their leader owns their career. I have never let my leader own my career. I mean, that's a fatal mistake. You need to own your career. Identify your goals. Where do you want to be? How do you get there? Now, your leader can help with that. That's when you could talk to your leader and say, this is what I want to do. This is how I want, what do I need to do? What continuing education do I need to do? What technology do I need to learn, right? Because technology changes at a very fast pace. Just as an auto mechanic must learn the new feature to work on a car, and I'm proud of my brother. He's a 37-year mechanic for a Ford dealership. I mean, the amount of money he spends on tools because they change constantly, he wouldn't be in the business if he wasn't learning them, right? Even a car 10 years ago is not a car today. Today I have Android Auto, right? Love my Android Auto. Well, he has to learn that. Yeah. So it's the same, whether it's the latest in medicine, whether it's the latest in technology, latest in marketing, whatever that is, just keep retooling yourself, keep yourself relevant. And that's the other thing is when you go into meetings and there's big meetings and you'll have 5 or 6 topics and only one little topic applies to you and you tune out and you go to your phone and I'm not paying any attention to this because it's a meeting, right? Oh no, the way I got where I was with getting a huge amount of the business aspect is I would sit in the meetings with my customer and soak up what they were talking about that had zero relevancy to what I was doing today. And when my company was awarded the contract in California to run their Medicare, Northern California Medicare program, I was a technologist, but the customer, who was part of my company, but they were my customer, said, I want to bring you to the business side. You know the business better than most of the people on the business side.
That's amazing. That's
right.
Wonderful.
And those are simple tools, things I just told you. It doesn't take, it's not rocket science. It's really just having and thriving on wanting to know as much as you can about your company, your customers' companies, and the businesses that you're supporting.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And on that note, what are some of the hot topics in the areas of business that the company is involved with that job seekers should paying attention to?
So since we are in technology and healthcare, right, the hot topics, one, I want to encourage our listeners first to do this, is to really encourage their children, male and female, to go into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. There's this myth out there that it's all been outshot. We have a huge deficit. Just in South Carolina, the last thing I saw was like over 100,000 technology jobs empty.
Wow.
And that's because we're not getting our kids into STEM. They have the knowledge, they have the capabilities. So I encourage them to do that. That's a hot topic. If the listeners want to look up a nonprofit that we help, it's called iteology.org. It's ologY.org. It's what we're trying to do for the state of South Carolina to teach, attract, and reach people in technology from pre-K through 12th grade, college, and retooling veterans, midlife career changes, things along that line. So what in technology are hot topics? Security. We cannot get enough people in security. I mean, I'm sure your listeners, every day they open the paper and there's a new security breach, or, I mean, the pipeline, we're on the East Coast, you know, the pipeline getting hit. So everybody, you know, goes to the gas pumps, making sure we get gases. Security is a big one. Programming obviously is a big one. Project management. And the great thing about project management is that's a skill set that you can take across industries, because the Project Management Institute is not specific to an industry when you get certified. In theory, you should be able to cross that certification across industries. Networking is big for technology industry, cloud and virtualization. I think of all the things we talked about at the beginning. Those are all jobs that have a very big shortage in activities. The other one, which is very surprising to me over the last year to 2 years, is accounting. You know, because we're a full company, we call ourselves a technology company, but we still need our finance area, we still need our contracting area. Accounting is a big one that's starting to see a hard time recruiting.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, that's if you're great with numbers, look it up. It's a good opportunity for career advancement.
Yeah, exactly. I sure hope we don't come to a point where shortage of accounting would start impact, you know, businesses. Is so central to
It is. Yeah, and you know, I'd be remiss. I talked about ours, but here's something that I think our education system, and not the system as in the people, but our cultural system, right, fails, is encouraging the trades. Everybody wonders why, you know, plumbers, electricians, construction, whatever that is, has become so expensive. It's because we encourage our kids, you've got to go to college. So I said 2 of us went to college, my oldest sister and myself, but the other 2 didn't. And I just told you my brother's a mechanic. And I mean, for decades, he'd say, how much are you making? And yes, you're still making more than I am with a 4-year degree. I get it. And not just, you know, a science 4-year degree. And so we really need to start pairing and understanding young. There's some value in what the Japanese do, right? What's your interest? Where do we want to go? Where's the shop classes? That's where it started with my brother, was the shop classes in high school. We really get them into the Midland tech schools. You know, parents just need to say, what is it that my child wants besides, and this again is my bias, a liberal art degree that may not get him somewhere. There is value in that, so nobody online get mad at me. But I'm telling you, the Vo-Tech jobs, the high demand. Yeah. We're going to, just like accountants, if someone cannot fix our plumbing, we are going to be in big trouble. If someone can't take care of our garbage, we're going to be in big trouble. So all of those jobs are so important in our society, and they're not low paying. Yeah. So, you know, exactly. I encourage people to look at that instead of feeling as if they have to go to college.
Exactly. No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Coming back to a company like yours, you know, what advice do you have to, you know, young to mid-level employees, for them to, you know, keep the right balance between, you know, working hard and at the same time, you know, don't ignoring their, you know, life, basically maintaining the right balance?
You know, everyone needs to learn where to find their balance. Early in my career, I was not as balanced as I am now, and which is usually unusual to hear, because a lot of times you'll hear executives say, oh, I worked 60, 80, 90 hours a week. I worked 50 to 70 hours a week. This was not mandated by my employer. It was a self-imposed condition. I came from going to college full-time, working full-time, and I said, oh, I got to keep doing this. The provider, the employer will help provide room for the balance. You need to set the boundary for what your balance is in life. You know, if you're going to give the employer 60 hours a week, I'm not going to stop you. But if you set your boundaries and you say, hey, here's my workload, and it needs to be a fair assessment of your workload, not that you want to play for 2 hours a day and then say I'm overworked, but it really needs to be an assessment of your workload, and say, here's what I can do and I can't do. And so I'm happy to say at this point in my life, even being a type A at work, I have balance. I have a lot of fun outside of work. I travel, I have friends, I have family. And when I go on vacation, I make sure that I have backup. So even as an individual performer, who's your backup? So they're not calling you while on vacation, right? And I just vacationed with some friends, and it happened to be that the men's were the ones doing this, but they were working a lot. And they're like, aren't you working? And I'm like, no, I have a good team.
Great.
You know, I have great people.
That's wonderful.
Really, they work harder than I do when I'm at work, I tell people. So it's, you know, whether as an individual performer or as a leader, make sure you've got that backup. Make sure you're not keeping things in your head. Don't hoard information. That's actually counterproductive for you. Some people want to say, I want to be the expert, I don't want to share, but it's counterproductive. You can't get that balance, and set those boundaries of what's most important to you.
That's great. Again, coming back to the company, what would you like to set CDS apart as a great employer when you look inside your own industry? How
can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
When you look in the industry, how do you see CDS setting itself apart as a great employer compared to other players?
Excellent. I think the way we set ourselves apart is going back to what I originally said, and that is that the customer experience is our strategic focus, making sure that our people are part of that and are important in that. And we're not driven by profit. That is not to say that we don't want to be profitable, right? I love being in a non-publicly traded company because we are allowed to make decisions that affect 2 to 10 years out and not quarter by quarter. So given a choice, unless somebody gave me like some huge multi-million-dollar deal that would lock me in with a golden parachute, I love my company. I love where I'm at. And I just want that to be known, is that we're driving for our customer and our people and not for meeting some false dollar expectation. When you do that, in my experience, even when I was in a publicly traded company, I tried to keep that mindset with my customers. The profit will come because your customers will come back and your people will stay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so profound that, you know, in this day and age, you know, we constantly think of, you know, the latest competitive advantage, but, you know, what you are talking about is so fundamental and at the same time so true. And there's no question about it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And one of my last questions, what would you personally like to be remembered as a leader?
So whether it's inside of work or outside of work, what I want to be remembered as is loving Christ and being his follower. People need to know that no matter what occurs in the workplace, our treasures are not here, they're not in the work, but, you know, there was Christ and he sacrificed for us. And so I want them, whether I profess that on a day-to-day basis at work, because we know the balance we have to have there or not, I want them to know that there's more importance to life than just work, and that they as individuals have a huge value that had a price paid for it. And that's really what I want.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Any other final thoughts for our audience?
My final thoughts, I've thought about this. It's one I use often, is persevere through any activity or barrier. Be passionate about what you do and love your people or the people around you. If you have those three things, you're going to succeed.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Lola, thank you so much for your time and advice today. Lola Jordan, President of Companion Data Services.
Thank you, Michael. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Okay.